2,000 years ago, a man sat alone at night and wrote to himself. Not to be famous, not to impress anyone, not to be remembered. He wrote because he needed to stay strong. He wrote because leading an empire was hard. He wrote because even emperors struggle with their own minds. That man was Marcus Aurelius. He was the most powerful person in the world. He commanded armies. He ruled millions of people. And yet every single night he sat down and reminded himself how to think. His private journal survived. We call it Meditations. And inside that small book is something remarkable. The most powerful man of his time was not talking about war. He was not talking about money or power or fame. He was talking about the mind, about how to control it, about how to keep it strong no matter what happens outside. This is a graded lesson for English learners who want a stronger mind. Here is what I want you to understand before we begin. Marcus Aurelius did not have an easy life. He faced war after war. He lost children. He dealt with betrayal from people he trusted. He lived through a plague that killed thousands every day. And through all of it, he kept going. Not because he was lucky, not because life was kind to him, but because he trained his mind. That is what today's lesson is about, not history. Not ancient philosophy for students in a classroom. This is practical. This is real. These are tools you can use today, this week, this year. By the end of this lesson, you will see your mind differently. You will understand that mental strength is not something you are born with. It is not a gift. It is a choice. It is a practice. It is something you build one thought at a time every single day. Control your mind. Control your life. Marcus Aurelius knew this 2,000 years ago. And the emperors, athletes, leaders, and survivors who came after him knew it too. Now it is your turn to learn it. If this kind of lesson speaks to you, if you want more content that challenges your thinking and grows your mind, subscribe right now. There is more coming, and you do not want to miss it. Let's begin. Lesson 1. The only thing you own. Here's the truth. Most people spend their entire lives trying to control the wrong things. They try to control what other people think of them. They try to control the economy, the weather, the news, their boss, their family. They try to control outcomes. And when those things don't go the way they want, they feel angry. They feel helpless. They feel like life is unfair. Marcus Aurelius had a different view, and he learned it from a man named Epictetus. Epictetus was born a slave in ancient Rome. He had no money, no freedom, no power over his own body. He could be sold, beaten, moved from place to place like an object. And yet Epictetus became one of the most respected thinkers in Roman history. Why? Because he discovered one simple truth, a truth so powerful that it changed the way Marcus Aurelius ruled an entire empire. The truth is this: there are two kinds of things in life, things you control and things you do not control. You control your thoughts. You control your choices. You control how you respond to what happens to you. That is it. That is the full list. You do not control other people. You do not control what they say or do or think. You do not control the past. You do not control the economy, the traffic, the weather, or the news today. These things are outside you. And spending your energy trying to change them is like trying to stop the rain with your hands. A weak mind blames the outside world. A strong mind looks inward first. Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. Every morning before he faced his empire, he reminded himself of this truth. He asked himself one question: what is actually in my control today? And then he focused only on that. Think about the last time something went wrong in your life. Maybe someone said something that hurt you. Maybe a plan failed. Maybe you lost something you worked hard for. Now think about where your mind went. Did it go outward, looking for someone to blame? Or did it go inward, asking what you could do next? That is the difference between a trained mind and an untrained mind. There was a professional in a large city who worked 12 hours a day. She gave everything to her job. But her manager took credit for her work. Her colleagues ignored her ideas, and the company passed her over for promotion. She was exhausted and angry. For months, she spent her energy being frustrated. Angry at her boss, angry at the system, angry at people who did not see her value. Then one day she stopped. She asked herself the question Marcus Aurelius asked every morning. What is actually in my control? Not her manager's behavior, not her colleagues' opinions, not the promotion decision, but her own skills, yes. Her own attitude, yes. Her decision to stay or to leave, yes. Her choice to keep growing, absolutely. She stopped fighting the things she could not change. She started building the things she could. Within a year, she had moved to a better company with better people doing better work. She did not change the world. She changed her focus, and that changed everything. This is lesson 1. The dichotomy of control. Stop. Think. Ask yourself, is this inside my circle or outside it? If it is outside, let it go. If it is inside, give it everything you have. Stop fighting the weather. Start controlling your umbrella. Lesson 2. The fortress inside you. Marcus Aurelius had a name for the mind. He called it the inner citadel. A citadel is a fortress, a place built to protect what is most valuable. In ancient times, when an enemy attacked a city, the people ran to the citadel. The walls were thick, the gates were strong. Inside, they were safe. Marcus Aurelius believed that every person carries a fortress inside them, not made of stone, not built with tools, built with thought, built with practice, built with daily discipline. And here is the most important thing he believed about that fortress. Nobody can break in without your permission. Listen carefully. Other people can say cruel things about you. They can criticize you, ignore you, or try to tear you down. The world can bring you bad news, bad weather, and bad luck. But none of that can enter your inner fortress unless you open the gate. You open the gate when you believe what they say. You open the gate when you let outside noise decide how you feel. You open the gate when you give other people's opinions more power than your own judgment. Most people do not even know they have a fortress. They live with the gates wide open. Every negative comment walks straight in. Every piece of bad news takes up a room. Every failure moves in and stays for years. Marcus Aurelius trained himself to keep the gates closed, not by ignoring the world, not by pretending problems do not exist, but by choosing deliberately and carefully what he allowed to have power over him. Think about your own mind right now. Think about what lives inside it. Are there old criticisms from years ago still walking the halls? Are there failures from the past sitting in the corner reminding you of what you cannot do? Are there other people's doubts about you, voices you heard long ago, still speaking to you today? Those things are inside your fortress, and you let them in. The good news is this: you can close the gate. You can decide what enters and what does not. You can look at a criticism and say, is this true? Is this useful? If not, it does not come in. You can look at a failure and take the lesson from it, then ask the rest to leave. Your mind is a room. You decide who sits in it. This is not easy. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this struggle in his private journal. He was not writing for history. He was writing for himself to remind himself every single day. Because even the most powerful man in the world had to practice this. He had to remind himself that he was the guardian of his own mind. That is the lesson. You are the guardian. Nobody stands at that gate but you. A strong mind is not a mind without problems. A strong mind is not a mind without pain or fear or doubt. A strong mind is a mind that knows the difference between what it must let in and what it must keep out. Nobody can enter your mind without your permission. Build your fortress, guard your gate, and decide today what is worth letting inside. Lesson 3. Remember this every morning. Marcus Aurelius kept a reminder, a short, uncomfortable, powerful reminder. He thought about death. Not in a dark way, not to make himself sad. He thought about death the way a doctor thinks about medicine. As a tool, as something that makes you sharper, more focused, more alive. The Romans had a phrase for this. Memento mori. It means remember that you will die. Before you move past that, stay with it for a moment. Because most people hear those words and they look away. They feel uncomfortable. They change the subject. They say, I'll think about that later. But Marcus Aurelius said, think about it now. Think about it every morning. Think about it before you waste another hour on something that does not matter. Now think about this. You have a fixed number of days on this earth. You do not know how many. It could be 40,000. It could be 400. You do not know. And Marcus Aurelius said that this uncertainty is not something to fear. It is something to use. If you knew today was your last year, would you spend it the same way you are spending it now? Would you worry about the same things? Would you stay angry at the same people? Would you keep waiting for the right moment to start the thing you keep putting off? Most people live as if they have unlimited time. They say, I will do it next year. I will fix that relationship later. I will start working on my dream when things are more comfortable, when I have more money, when I have more time, when I am more ready. Marcus Aurelius had no patience for this kind of thinking. He wrote, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. Not what you plan, not what you intend, what you actually do today. There was a young man who was terrified of thinking about death. Every time the idea came to him, he pushed it away. He distracted himself with his phone, with music, with anything that kept him busy. He thought, if I don't think about it, it cannot touch me. But it touched him in a different way. He wasted years. Years of small decisions that added up to a life he did not choose. Years of saying yes to things he did not want and no to things he deeply needed. Because he never asked the hard question. The question Memento Mori forces you to ask. Is this how I want to spend my time? One day someone close to him died, suddenly, without warning. And in that moment, the young man understood what Marcus Aurelius had been writing about in his journal 2,000 years before. Time is the only thing you cannot get back. Not money, not relationships, not reputation. Time. After that, the young man changed, not dramatically, not overnight, but slowly, deliberately. He started asking the question every morning. Is this worth my time? Is this how I want to live today? If your days scare you a little, if the idea of wasted time makes you uncomfortable, if the thought of a life half-lived keeps you up at night, then you are already waking up. You are already doing what Marcus Aurelius did. Use that feeling. Use it like fuel. The clock is running. What are you waiting for? Control your mind, control your life. Start today, not tomorrow. Not when things get easier. Today while you still have it. Lesson 4. The door is the wall. Marcus Aurelius faced problems every single day of his reign. Wars on the borders, disease inside the city, politicians who lied to him, generals who failed him, a plague that had no cure and no end. And through all of it, he wrote the same idea in his journal again and again in different words. The obstacle is the way, not around it, not under it, not waiting for it to disappear. Through it. Because of it, the obstacle itself becomes the path forward. Stay with me because this idea sounds simple, but it will change how you see every hard thing in your life. Most people treat problems like walls. They hit the wall, they stop, they look for another road. And sometimes there is no other road. Sometimes the wall is the only thing in front of you. And in those moments, the people who succeed are not the ones who found a way around. They are the ones who learned to climb. Quitters see the obstacle and stop. Builders see the obstacle and start. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison. 27 years. He was taken from his family, from his work, from his freedom. The apartheid government of South Africa put him on an island and told him he would stay there until he gave up his beliefs. They believed the prison would break him. It did not break him. Mandela used those years. He studied. He thought. He talked with other prisoners and built relationships that would later help him lead a country. He kept his mind sharp and his values clear. He did not treat prison as the end of his story. He treated it as part of the path. When he walked out of that prison in 1990, he was not a broken man. He was a stronger man, a wiser man, a man who had been tested by the hardest obstacle imaginable and had come through it standing tall. He became the president of South Africa. He led his country through one of the most difficult transitions in modern history, and he did it without bitterness, without anger at the years he had lost. Because he understood the way Marcus Aurelius understood, that what stands in the way becomes the way. Now think about your own obstacles. The job you lost, the relationship that ended, the plan that failed, the door that closed in your face. At the time, it felt like the end. But was it? Or did it push you somewhere you needed to go? He studied harder after he failed the exam. He built his own business after he lost the job. She found real love after the painful relationship ended. She discovered her real passion after the career she thought she wanted fell apart. The obstacle did not stop them. The obstacle directed them. This does not mean every hard thing is secretly good. Some things are genuinely painful. Some losses are real. Marcus Aurelius knew this. He lost children. He grieved. He did not pretend the pain was not there. But he asked a different question. Not, why is this happening to me, but, what can I do with this? That question changes everything. It moves your mind from helpless to active, from victim to builder, from someone the world is happening to someone who is happening to the world. Your hardest problem is your greatest teacher. If this lesson is speaking to you, if you want more content that builds your mind and challenges your thinking, subscribe to this channel right now. New lessons come regularly, and they are made for people who are serious about growth. Now let's keep going. Lesson 5. Love what happens to you. This is the hardest lesson. Not the most complicated, the hardest. Because it asks something that goes against everything we naturally feel. It asks you to love your fate, not accept it, not tolerate it. Love it. Marcus Aurelius called this amor fati, a Latin phrase meaning love of fate. And he did not just write about it. He practiced it through wars, through loss, through years of carrying a weight that would have broken most people. Here's what most people miss. Acceptance is not weakness. Acceptance is the beginning of power. Most people react. A few people choose. When something bad happens, most people react immediately. They feel anger. They feel that life is unfair. They resist what has happened. They spend enormous energy wishing that things were different, wishing they could go back, wishing the world had treated them better. And that energy, all of it, is wasted because the past cannot change. What happened has happened. The only variable, the only thing still in your hands is what you do next. A few people understand this, and those few people choose. They choose how to respond. They choose what meaning to give to what happened. They choose to look at the hard thing and ask, how can this serve me? Viktor Frankl was an Austrian psychiatrist. In 1942, the Nazis arrested him and sent him to a concentration camp. He lost almost everything: his family, his freedom, his work. His manuscript, a book he had spent years writing, was destroyed. He had nothing left. And yet, in the middle of the worst conditions a human being can face, Frankl made a discovery. He noticed that the prisoners who survived longest were not always the strongest physically. They were the ones who found meaning, the ones who had a reason to keep going, a person to return to, a work to finish, a purpose that the camp could not take from them. He wrote about this after he was freed. He said that everything can be taken from a person except one thing: the last of human freedoms. The freedom to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. That is amor fati. That is what Marcus Aurelius practiced 2,000 years before Frankl put it into words. You cannot control what hits you. You can control what you become. There was a woman who lost her job, her savings, and her relationship in the same year. 3 things gone. She had worked for years building a life, and in 12 months most of it was gone. For a long time she was broken. She grieved. She was angry. She asked the question most of us ask when everything falls apart. Why me? But slowly something shifted. She stopped asking why me and started asking what now. She took a smaller job in a different field. She moved to a different city. She started over with less, but with something she had not had before: clarity. She knew now what mattered to her. She knew what she would never trade again. She knew herself better than she ever had, because the loss had stripped away everything that was not real. She did not love the pain, but she learned to love what the pain revealed. That is the practice. Not pretending that hard things are good. Not forcing yourself to smile when you are hurting, but looking at what life has handed you and asking, what can I build with this? Not reacting, choosing. Loving your fate does not mean you wanted what happened. It means you refuse to let what happened be wasted. Take what life gives you. Use all of it, especially the hard parts. Lesson 6. Zoom out. You are standing too close to your problems. That is not a criticism, it is just the truth. When something hurts, when something goes wrong, when life feels heavy and unfair, the natural thing is to move closer, to look harder, to think about it more, to turn it over and over in your mind, examining every angle, every detail, every way it could have been different. And the more you zoom in, the bigger it gets. Marcus Aurelius had a practice for this. He called it the view from above. He would stop. He would pull his mind back the way you pull a camera back from a close-up shot. And he would look at his problem from a greater distance. Not just from across the room, from high above. From the perspective of the city, then the empire, then the whole world. Then, the sweep of history. Let me make this simple. When you look at your problem from inside it, it fills your entire view. It is all you can see. But when you pull back far enough, when you zoom out far enough, you begin to see it in proportion. You begin to see how small it actually is, compared to everything else that exists. Marcus Aurelius wrote about the great emperors and conquerors who came before him. He wrote about how even the most famous and powerful people in history are mostly forgotten now. Their empires are dust. Their names, once known by millions, are now known only by those who study history. He wrote this not to make himself sad. He wrote it to free himself. If even the greatest achievements of history have faded, then today's frustration, today's embarrassment, today's failure is not as permanent as it feels right now. The crowd chases comfort. The emperor chased clarity. Most people, when they are in pain, want relief. They want the feeling to stop. They want comfort, distraction, anything to make the discomfort go away faster. And there is nothing wrong with comfort. But comfort without clarity is just delay. The problem is still there when you come back. Marcus Aurelius wanted clarity. He wanted to see things as they actually were, not as his emotions told him they were. And the view from above gave him that. It gave him perspective. It gave him proportion. It gave him the ability to act from reason rather than from fear. Modern psychology has a name for this: cognitive reframing. It means changing the way you look at a situation to change the way you feel about it. Scientists who study the mind have found that people who practice this, who deliberately shift their perspective during difficult moments, handle stress better, recover faster, and make better decisions under pressure. Marcus Aurelius was doing this 2,000 years before the science caught up. If your problem feels enormous, try this. Ask yourself, will this matter in 10 years? If yes, give it your full attention. If no, give it less. Ask yourself, how does this look from outside my life? From the perspective of someone who loves me and sees the full picture. Ask yourself, in the long story of my life, is this a chapter or just a sentence? If your fear feels bigger than your future, if your problem feels bigger than your strength, if today feels heavier than you can carry, then you are too close. Step back, look again. From high enough, every storm looks small. Control your mind, control your life. The view from above is not about pretending your problems do not matter. It is about seeing them at the right size. No bigger than they are. No more powerful than they deserve to be. Zoom out, breathe, and then decide what actually needs your energy. Lesson 7. What you do before the world wakes up. Marcus Aurelius woke up before dawn. Not because he had to. He was the emperor. Nobody told him when to rise. He did it because he chose to. Because he understood something that most people never figure out. The first moments of the day belong to you. Before the demands start. Before the noise begins. Before the world comes knocking. What you do with those moments shapes everything that follows. His practice was simple. He sat. He thought. He wrote. He reminded himself of the principles he believed in. He asked himself what kind of person he wanted to be today. Not this year, not someday, today. Hear me on this. What you think about in the morning is what you become by evening. This is not a motivational idea. This is how the brain works. Scientists who study the mind have found that the brain is not fixed. It changes. It rewires itself based on what you repeatedly think, feel, and do. This process is called neuroplasticity. And it means that every time you practice a thought, you make it easier for that thought to come back. Every time you wake up and remind yourself of your values, you make those values stronger. Every time you start the day with purpose, you make purpose feel more natural. Every time you choose your first thought deliberately, you train your brain to keep choosing. Marcus Aurelius was rewiring his brain every morning 2,000 years before neuroscience existed to explain it. A person without discipline is ruled by their emotions. A person with discipline rules themselves. Most people wake up and immediately hand their mind to the outside world. They pick up their phone, they check the news, they look at what other people are doing, saying, achieving. And before they have even gotten out of bed, their mind is already full of things they did not choose to put there. Marcus Aurelius did the opposite. Before any outside information came in, he filled his own mind first, with his own thoughts, his own values, his own intentions for the day. He woke up, he reflected, he prepared, he chose. And then he went out and led an empire. You do not need to lead an empire, but you do have a life to lead. And that life will be shaped more than anything else by the daily habits of your mind. Not the big dramatic moments, the small repeated daily ones. The morning practice does not need to be long. Marcus Aurelius did not write pages every morning. He wrote a few lines. He asked a few questions. What is in my control today? What kind of person do I want to be? What do I need to let go of? 3 questions. 5 minutes every morning. That is the whole practice. But here is what makes it hard. It requires you to wake up a little earlier. It requires you to put the phone down for a few minutes. It requires you to sit with your own thoughts instead of filling the silence with noise. And for most people, that is the hardest part. Not the discipline itself, the silence before it. Because in the silence you have to meet yourself, the real you. Not the version you perform for other people. The version that knows what it actually wants, what it is actually afraid of, what it actually values. Marcus Aurelius met himself every morning. He did not always like what he found. His journal shows a man who struggled, who doubted, who sometimes failed to live up to his own standards. But he kept showing up. He kept asking the questions. He kept choosing who he wanted to be one morning at a time. That is the practice. Not perfection, consistency. Control your mind, control your life. Marcus Aurelius did not wake up strong. He built strength every morning, one thought at a time. You can do the same, starting tomorrow, starting today. The only question is whether you will. 7 lessons. 2,000 years old. Still true today. Let's bring them together. Lesson 1. The only thing you truly own is your response. Not what happens to you, your response to it. Stop fighting what you cannot change. Focus completely on what you can. Lesson 2. You have a fortress inside you. A mind that nobody can enter without your permission. Guard it. Choose what you let in. Keep the gates strong. Lesson 3. Remember that time is not unlimited. Remember it every morning, not to feel afraid, but to feel awake. The clock is running. Use your days well. Lesson 4. The obstacle is the way. Your hardest problem is pointing you toward your next level. Stop asking why it is there. Start asking what it is teaching you. Lesson 5. Love your fate. Not the pain, but what the pain reveals. You cannot control what hits you. You can always control what you become because of it. Lesson 6. Zoom out. From high enough, every storm looks small. Pull back from your problem. See it at the right size. Give it only the energy it actually deserves. Lesson 7. Build the morning habit. What you think about first shapes everything that follows. Give your mind its own thoughts before the world fills it with someone else's. 7 lessons, 1 man. A journal written in private, never meant to be published, never meant to be read by anyone but himself. And yet here we are, 2,000 years later, still reading it, still learning from it, still finding in those quiet, late-night words something that speaks directly to the life we are trying to build right now. Marcus Aurelius is gone. His empire is gone. But his mind lives in these lessons. And now it can live in yours. Take one lesson from today, just one. Think about it tonight. Write it down if you can. Ask yourself how it applies to your life right now, not someday, now. That is how change begins. Not with a dramatic moment, with a single thought practiced daily until it becomes who you are. Control your mind, control your life. Which lesson hit you hardest today? Was it the dichotomy of control, the inner citadel, memento mori? Tell me in the comments below. I read every one, and your answer might help someone else who is watching and needs to hear it. Keep listening daily and your English will grow with your mind. Thank you for spending this time with me. I will see you in the next lesson.